Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. For the grammar lesson, we're going to continue with lessons 7 through 8, 7 and 8 in that Quranic Language Made Easy book. So if you guys don't have that book, it's a very helpful book. Sometimes the explanations of things are a little bit hard to understand, but it's very good in giving examples. So it's very comprehensive, gives examples of every concept that we're learning. So please, even if you don't want to learn from that book, because it's not in your style, just look at it for at least the examples and the lists of pronouns, lists of prepositions, and that's very helpful. So I just want to review the topics very superficially that we've covered so far. We've covered types of words. Types of words include ism, harf, and fi'l. Okay, so those are the three types of words. Fi'l and ism have root letters. Harf does not, no root. And again, we also said ism and fi'l have things like gender. Ism and fi'l, every ism and fi'l has a gender, so that's universal. Gender is the most important. Okay, all of them have gender. They also have, some of them also have a person, and they all have number also. Let me add that, because that's also universal. For ism, it's singular and plural and dual, and same thing for fi'l. Okay, so they all have number. Some of them have person, first, second, and third person. Ism or fi'l, both of them can have. Fi'l always does, ism sometimes does. So person, for some of the ism, you don't have a person. And only for fi'l, you have tense and mood and things like that. So they all have certain things that the root word, the root letters, give just a general meaning. Then the rest of the letters are for this. Okay, these are not in the root letters. They're just the extra letters give the meaning of number, gender, person, tense. Okay. Second thing we talked about are how to find the root letters. So as we discussed earlier, the three most important letters in terms of meaning. So the three, I should say, most conserved letters. So that root is oftentimes shared with many different words that come down. Okay, kataba, katib, yaktub. They're shared. So a noun and a verb often share a root. So those are even across ism and fi'l. Even though they're two whole different types of words, they'll share a common root. And then if you know the root, you'll know the meaning of many different types of words. Okay, so you just have to combine the root with the letters. We'll study which letters mean what. So once you just combine those two, you'll know the exact meaning of every word. So, the third thing we studied is pronouns. So this is a special type of ism. It's called dhamir. It stands in place of another noun, and there are two types. There's attached and detached. Attached and detached. Pronouns are divided into attached and detached. And just attached are ones that receive the action of a pronoun Attached pronouns receive the action of a preposition or a verb or denote possession. So if they're attached to a preposition, they receive the kind of the location of that preposition. If they're attached to a verb, they receive the action of the verb. If they're attached to a noun, they receive that, they just possess the noun. So it's like a possessive clause. Detached pronouns are just, they start the idea of the phrase. So they are the subject of what you're talking about. Huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, and they're completely independent. So they come as a whole word. Whereas attached pronouns are attached always to a verb, as their name, or a word, as their name suggests. Okay, so continue practicing these things, inshallah. The new lesson for today is about prepositions. So we talked about prepositions being sometimes attached to pronouns. Now we'll talk about what is preposition. So they're a type of harf, not ism, they're a type of harf. So they don't have a number, they don't have a gender, they don't have a root, they don't have anything like that. There are not that many of them either. So they're about the same number as pronouns. So I asked you to memorize the list of pronouns. I'll ask you to memorize the list of prepositions. Both are from this book that you can buy. And they're not that many. And they are words that denote position with respect to another noun or another pronoun. So, my book is under the table. Under is the preposition, is denoting the position of the book. My book, tahta al-maktab, the desk. Okay, it's underneath, or over, or inside, or outside, or above, below. All these things are prepositions. Around, hawla, we had hawla. That's also considered a preposition in English. As like an asterisk, there's certain prepositions that are true and there's certain that are false. So if you studied this distinction before, you don't have to get confused. For our purpose, everything listed in lesson 7 and 8 is just a preposition. Okay? So just because they follow the same exact rules. And what are these rules? The first, hopefully everybody understands. It's a pretty simple concept what they do. It's just denoting position of one thing with relative to another. That's the major use. But in terms of grammar and structure, they cause a noun, if they're coming before a noun, they cause the noun coming after them to get a kasra. Okay? Ilallahi, for example. This kasra, if Allah came by itself, it would be Allahu. If it comes after a preposition, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi. The reason it's Allahi is because there's a preposition before. It's very simple. As soon as you see a preposition, if a noun comes after, it takes a kasra. It's simple. Okay. How about a pronoun? What about if a pronoun comes after? It's the same meaning. The meaning doesn't change. I can say al-kitab tahta al-maktab, the book is under the table, or I can say al-kitab tahtahu, underneath it. Same thing, it's just denoting the position. If you already explained what that who is referring to in the sentence before, then you can just use it in the same way as you would use it with a noun. Okay? The only difference though is that you don't always put a kasra on the pronoun. Pronouns usually don't change. There's al-kitab, for example, a noun can be kitabun, kitaban, kitabin. Pronouns, like for example, kum, you don't say kumma, kumni, kumin. So don't happen. You don't say ka, ki, ku, okay? Because ka and ki mean something completely different. They're just not, you don't put fatha, dhamma, kasra. So that's the general rule. For certain pronouns, you do have a slight change, okay? So for example, I told you to learn about who. That's one of the pronouns you learn. It means he. Or him, if it's attached. It's an attached pronoun, meaning him. If you attach it to a preposition, certain prepositions, it becomes he, like ilayhi. Ilayhi. Okay? Alayhi. Or alayhim also. Hum can be an attached pronoun. If you attach it, becomes alayhim. So what are these? Anything that has like a ya or kasra on it, right? Ilay, alay, fihi, let's see, bihi. So things that have that kasra sound to them, for third person pronouns, they change them to a kasra. And it's not something you should memorize. I don't want you to memorize, oh, third person pronouns change to a kasra when they're attached to a preposition. Just look at the Quran, look at the places where you never see ilayhu. If you read the Quran on a daily basis, like everyone should, you will just recognize, okay, alayhu never comes. I've never heard that. I've never heard fihu. Yeah, so that's not a min doesn't have. So the question is minhu. Min doesn't end with a kasra sound, right? Ilayhi, min, yeah. Minhu. Okay. There is one very important thing though that I want you to memorize is about lam. Li means two or four, right?
Yes.
So if you attach li to a pronoun, it becomes la. Sorry. If you attach it to who, for example, it becomes la hu, la. You have to change it to la. It's not lihi, lihim, likim, likum, nothing like that. It's la hum, lakum, lana, like that. Okay, so that you have to really get that one in because it confuses a lot of people. Okay, so when you use li with a pronoun, you change it to la. That's it. Okay. So other than that, you can if you want, you can memorize the rule. If it has like a ya or kasra sound that ends with the ya or kasra sound, you change third person, meaning anything that starts with ha. hum, hun, hu. All these are third person. He, she would be ha. You don't change ha. Alayha, you don't change. It's just hu, hum, and hun, and huma, for example, if you're doing dual. Okay? So, you have that's one thing I didn't emphasize so far. Inshallah, we'll go over that. In Arabic, there's singular, dual, and plural. Okay? Singular, dual, and plural. So if you refer to two things, okay? So singular, dual, and plural. If you have two things, it becomes dual. There's slightly separate rules for those. So you don't use the plural forms. Okay, so these are two simple exceptions. This one is very confusing because it's very simple at the same time.
So alayha will not be there.
Alayha will be there because ha does not change. So third person, mostly masculine, refers to hu, huma, hum, and hunna will change. Alayhinna will become. But alayha, if you change alayha to alayhi, then it became something else. Right? He is the masculine pronoun, alayha is the feminine, so you can't change that. So if it changes to a different pronoun, then you're changing the pronoun. So then it doesn't work that. So, okay. So, just one other use for pronouns is for swearing. Okay? So many times in the Quran, Allah swears by His creation. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْعَصْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Countless and countless times. The most common is what? Right? You often hear people say Wallahi, etc., etc. if they're swearing by Allah. So that means by Allah, or swearing. I swear by Allah. Okay, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, obviously, He's the only one who can use His creation for swearing. It's a Shari'i rule thing. But so wa is the most common use, but that's not the only one that's used for swearing. A lot of people think that since you hear Wallahi and Washamsi wa duhaha, all these that start with wa, that's the only one. It's not the only one. There are other B, for example, B, ta, and la. The single letters are all sometimes used for swearing. Billahi in awadana illa ihsana wa tawfiqa. La'amruka innahum lafi. By your Ummah, they are in. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says by the Ummah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by his life, basically. So la'amruka. So la, ta, tallahi, you hear that a lot. And they have different levels of emphasis. So that's all you have to remember, okay? So any single letter pronoun, wa is actually not even a preposition. So I shouldn't include that here. But it's just a single letter word. But some of the bi, ta, and li are sometimes used for swearing, okay? So that's the other usage. So let me write those down. So you have bi, you have ta, you have la. It's the fatha, la with the fatha, not la with the kasra, okay? So no kasra. So I guess this doesn't really count as a preposition either. But it's just to highlight these two things. I guess it's a separate grammar lesson, but just so you don't get confused. Okay. Why do I include these two with the prepositions? Because they cause the word to have a kasra also. Okay. Normally a wa doesn't cause you to have a kasra. A wa by itself does not make the next word into a kasra word. But when it's used as swearing, then it becomes a kasra. So it acts like a preposition. Because I told you, when you have a noun after a preposition, you make it a kasra. Just like that, if you have these letters used for swearing, they become a kasra. Okay, so some examples. Amanna billahi. I mean, these come everywhere in the Quran, so you should just go home and look. I'm just giving some basic examples. Amanna billahi wa bil yawmil akhir. Okay, I didn't put any of the tashkil, but here's the B. This is a preposition. We believe with Allah or in Allah. He, this will be he, because after the preposition comes a kasra. Bil yawmil akhir, same thing. Yawmi. That's one example. Ala is another preposition, meaning on. Qulubihim. Why did you ever notice? This is the ayah we studied already. Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. It's qulubi because that's the word that comes after ala. Sam'i because it comes after ala. Absari because it comes after ala. Thumma ilayhi turja'un. Ilayhi, this is an example with the pronoun. Okay? One thing, that's basically it. So please go over the pronouns in lesson 7 and 8. They have a lot more examples. They have like tens of dozens of examples, and you just get used to finding them. Okay. And one thing I think I should add. It's a little bit complicated, but again, about the letter wa, it means and, right? Sometimes you have a preposition. So let's say preposition followed by a noun. So what will the noun have? The noun will have a kasra, followed by wa, followed by another noun. This noun will also have a kasra because the waw is applying the preposition to both this noun and this noun. Okay, so you won't see a separate preposition all the time. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but you have to put kasra on both. Okay, so if there's a waw, beware that there are multiple things that same preposition is applying to. Okay, so that's just to keep in mind. Sometimes you'll see a kasra and you'll see, oh, there's a preposition here. Can I apply that preposition all the way 3 words down, and that's why it has a kasra? Yes, you can if there's wa between the two. If the wa has to come right before this noun, obviously. But these have to be right next to each other. So that's pretty much it for prepositions. Just go over the examples in the book and go over examples in the Quran. Find the prepositions, learn their meaning. What does bi mean? What does fi mean? What does ila mean? Ala. Inda, tahta, fawqa. All these things, all of them come in the Quran. Please try to go over them, find the meaning, look at the examples of the book and the Quran. And that's it for the grammar lesson today. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka.